Man, as I've been around campus today, it's very obvious God's at work here. Would you agree? Thank you guys so much. Have any of you guys ever asked this simple question of, is life really worth living? I don't suppose there's a human being that's ever lived very long, maybe a baby in infancy passing away or not living a long life. Maybe that individual doesn't ask this question, but I think every single individual, if you live long enough and you begin to experience life, are going to ask that question. Everybody in this room believes you know how life is going to turn out. You guys already have it all made. This little white house, a little picket fence, 2.9 children, a couple of pit bulls. I mean, every single one of you have got everything already mapped out. But I want you to remember the words of John Lennon of the Beatles when he said many years ago, and it's the only thing John Lennon ever said, I can speak from the pulpit. But it's so true. He said this, don't forget it. He said, life is what happens to you when you're making other plans. There are many dreams that I had at 17. My life was all planned out as to what I would do with it. And then life happened. There's a man thousands of years ago who's in great company with you because he asked that very question thousands of years ago. In fact, he denotes an entire book of the Bible to attempting to answer that question. Is life really worth living? In fact, he is so certain that the answer is no, that for 11 and a half chapters out of a 12-chapter book, he gives 4 reasons to support his conclusion that life is not worth living. Now, some of you were saying, well, who is this guy? Was he poor? Was he ugly? Didn't have a girlfriend? What's the deal? No. In today's terms, this man was a multi-billionaire. Some of you believe if you just get enough money, life's going to be worth living. This man had thousands of great-looking babes to do with him whatever he wanted. So it wasn't a question of not having a girlfriend. Every gadget, every toy, the latest turbo chariot, everything that was afforded to him, in fact, he said, not anything has been withheld from my eyes. He had it all. But he comes to the conclusion that life is really not worth living. And when we get to the 11th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, something happens to this man by the name of Solomon. You want to go ahead and turn to Ecclesiastes? That'll be great. It is Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. If you're at the Song of Solomon, hang a left. Something happened to Solomon at the last half of this book that absolutely changed his life. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant to tell you what it is because I'm afraid some of you are going, dude, that's no big deal. I've heard this before. But what Solomon does in the last half of chapter 11 and all of chapter 12 is he brings God into the picture. For the very first time, Solomon brings God into the picture. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you take God out of the picture, you have no picture. You take God out of the picture, you take light out of your picture. How many of you in here have a very special picture that's very sacred to you? You love it. It's worth a lot to you, a special picture. Do you understand that apart from light, that picture is not possible? You take light away, you have no photo. The only thing that's good about darkness is it gives us an opportunity to sleep. But when you take God out of the picture, you take light out of the picture. And when you take light out of the picture, you have no reason to live. And for the most of this book, that is exactly what he did. Light changes everything. Light changes everything. The Christian life is a life of change. Paul said in 2 Corinthians, if any man, any woman, any teenager, any child is in Christ, they're a brand new creature. The word in the language of the New Testament is a being that has never existed before. When Jesus comes into your life, he doesn't refine you, he creates a revolution. And when you come to Christ and you surrender your life to him, and if there is absolutely no change, you have got to take a long, hard look at your life. Because Jesus changes people. The Christian life begins with change. It's the word justification. Do you remember the day that you realized for the very first time that you could not save yourself? You would never be good enough. And so by faith you knelt and surrendered your heart to Christ. And when you did so and Christ came into your life, the Father will see you differently from now on. When he sees you, he sees a man, a woman, justified in his eyes, no longer condemned. The Christian life continues in change, that sanctification, where God the Father makes you more like God the Son. And the Christian life ends in change, which is glorification, when the day that you die, you receive at some point in time a new glorified body. Our God is in the change business. I want you to think about many years ago, for some of you, when you invited Christ to come into your life. My question is this: when you surrendered your life to Jesus, was it to get Jesus or to get fire insurance? Because in this country for the last 50 years, we have told children that all you got to do is come forward and mouth these little words. All you got to do is shake your pastor's hand and jump into the baptistry and you got your card. And we do not talk about dying to self. We do not talk about repentance. We do not talk about surrender. And our churches are filled today with people who have absolutely no clue what it means to have an intimate, passionate relationship with a living God. You can't meet Jesus without being radically changed. And so what I want you to understand in this particular text is that this man, Solomon, is about to see God in a way that he's never seen him before. How many of you in here believe you know what's the most horrible thing that can happen to a person? I asked our staff this a few weeks ago, and one of our staff said, well, I think that the most horrible thing that can happen to anybody is to be put feet first in a tree shredder. Which I have to admit, that's horrible. But I want you to know this. You listening? It's not the worst thing. The worst thing is happening every day with people that you're coming in contact with and you're going to school with. These are people who are living without the reality of God in their lives. People that you meet every day on their way to an eternal hell. People who are separated, who are going through life in darkness. They have no idea that light's possible except for the light potentially they see in you. And so when we get to this particular passage we're about to see, Solomon gives us 3 imperatives, 3 commands that if we are to see life clearly, if life is to be illumined, where God begins to reveal to me, Warren, this is the purpose for which you were created, I have got to follow these things. And if you want to know as well, you must also. So let's look at it together. The first one we found in verse 9 of Ecclesiastes chapter 11. He begins with these words. He says, rejoice, young man, during your childhood. In other words, don't you understand that the world that you're living in, the teenage world that we're living in today, is filled with teenagers who are cutting themselves. They're sticking their fingers down their throat. They are committing suicide, not because they don't know how to rejoice, but because they're rejoicing in the wrong thing. Let's look at it again. Look at verse 9. He says, rejoice, young man, all of the days of your childhood. In other words, cheer all the days of your youth. Now, those of you in this room that don't know Christ, you can get behind that. Those of you in this room that know Christ, you can get behind this. We are all first chair, first string celebration freaks. All of us are. We know how to party. We know how to have a good time. We know how to celebrate. All of us do. So initially, it seems as if, why is he telling us to do this? But my question is, why is the average teenager's today celebration so temporary? Why is it? Someone tell me. Why does your celebration stimulation have to be repeated over and over and over and over again? Why is your celebration why does it not last? Why does that party that you went to last weekend not sufficient for you this weekend? Why is it that you've got to do the thing you just did next weekend? Why does the celebration stimulation not last? Have you ever wondered that? Before you answer that question, I'm going to ask you another one. You ever wondered why you're told in school by your teachers to pursue your dreams? Has anybody in here ever been told something like that? Oh, honey, pursue your dreams. Accomplish your dreams. Do you understand that one of the worst things that can happen to you is that you fulfill your dreams? Do you understand one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a teenager today is the fulfillment of their dreams? And I think most of us would say no. I don't understand that. I don't get that. In fact, it can be one of the most horrible things that happens to you. You say, really? Tell me. Romans chapter 1, verse 24, here's what Paul said. God gave them over to the desires of their flesh. God gave them over to the fulfillment of their dreams. And then he lists all of these horrible things that happen because of that. You be very careful what you ask God for, because God may give it to you. And he answers the question in verse 25. Why was it dangerous? Look what it says. Because they served and worshiped created beings more than the Creator. Your heart and my heart is an idol factory. Your heart and my heart naturally attaches itself to idols. We are living in an idolatrous country, and the church today is as idolatrous as the world in many ways. We talked about it last night. Everybody in this room has got a king other than the King Jesus. You have a struggle with that. I have a struggle with that. Anytime that we believe that things, don't miss this, anytime you believe that things or people can give you meaning, they can give you hope, they can give you purpose, they can give you happiness, you are on a road to being severely disappointed. Every human relationship in the world is either going to disappoint you or it's going to die. Do you know that? You don't believe me? Just keep living. Every human relationship is either going to disappoint you or it's going to die. My heart, your heart, naturally attaches itself to idols. So the problem for the teenager today, you ready? The problem is not that you rejoice and I rejoice. Here's the problem. We are broken in what we rejoice in. You're broken, I'm broken. The reason why the celebration stimulation must be repeated time and time again is that we are broken in what we rejoice in. When I was 20 years old, I, in a very short amount of time, fell head over heels in love with Sherry Ann Thornton. It's the gal who's with me this week. I mean, she just messed my world up. That's what girls, you can do that to us. She turned me upside down. But after we dated about 3 months, she said, Warren, I really would like to date. And girls, we hate it when you say this because we know what you're saying. But just tell us the truth. Don't say this. Oh, I just want to date other people. We hate that. Just tell us, I want to go date Kyle again. And that's what she did. But anyway, so she went back and she started dating Kyle again. Well, let me tell you something. This was in the summer. In fact, I'll tell you how long ago it was. It was the summer that Elvis died. Now, don't tell me you don't know who Elvis is. So it's a long stinking time ago, okay? But the emotions were just as real today as they were. In fact, I was looking at my yearbook the other day and I thought, my gosh, how were any of us attracted to anybody else in this yearbook? Ugliest bunch of people I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, for the entire summer, I moped and I went around and I sulked. And I'm telling you, it was the most miserable summer of my life. But you know what God revealed to me? And Sherry Ann is without a doubt the godliest woman I've ever known. When you see her, my wife exudes Christ. She is my best friend. God let me marry my best friend almost 34 years ago. And we are as in love today as we were 34 years ago when we met. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Sherry Ann, the godliest girl I ever knew and still know today, became an idol in my life. And God said to me, until Sherry Ann becomes number 2 in your life and I truly become number 1, she will never be given back to you because I'm not sharing you with anyone or anything else. And there's some of you in this room right now, there's a young man or there's a young woman in your life, and if you'd get alone with God for 10 seconds, get off your phone or off your computer, you'd find out that they're a king in your life as well. They're an idol. And God is not willing to share his children with anyone or anything else. And it was a very difficult lesson for me to learn. Girls, listen to me. If he tells you you're number 1, run! Run! Because if he tells you you're number 1, he cannot possibly love you the way Christ loves you. He can't. The Bible's clear that the man who does not know God does not know love. I don't care how tall, tan, terrific he is. If he is not pursuing the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, he will never be able to give you what you need. And young ladies, you listen to me tonight. I'll talk to you just like I do my girls. If a young man does not lead you in spiritual things while he's trying to win your heart, he will not do so once he's won your heart. He won't. And a lot of these guys you're dating, they can't. They can't possibly give you what you think that you need. We're living today, unfortunately, in a world, and people ask me this all the time, Warren, why is this world so screwed up? Because we as a world have worshiped creation more than creator. And Paul talks about it in Romans 8. He said the whole earth groans. It groans. It groans. The world that you live in is a world that is not in sorrow because sorrow can be consoled. The world that you live in is a world in despair, and nothing can comfort anyone in despair. And you only get in despair when the one thing that you have that is ultimate to you is taken away from you. That's why if there's anything, anyone more important to you that can be taken or stolen from you, it's an idol. It's an idol. In fact, Paul says, the word that he uses here when he talks about creation groaning, because listen to me, the earth also feels the curse of sin. It's not just people that were affected by sin. There was a curse put on the land. The word that he uses for groaning is something that stands on its tiptoes with its neck outstretched. What is it creation doing that for? Because he says that all of creation is eagerly waiting for the day that God reveals who his children are. Oh, there's coming a day. There's coming a day that all of eternity, all of the earth will applaud when God begins to reveal who his children are. But that's the world you live in. This world does not have any idea that hope is possible. And let me tell you something. I've said this to many of you this week. Some of the sharpest teenagers I've ever met in my life, I have met this week. I mean, this is an unbelievable. Leighton tried to tell me about this before I came. He's dead on. He said, Warren, it's going to be one of the greatest groups of kids you've ever worked with. And he is so right. So understand that if we don't get this, the world has absolutely no idea whether or not true hope, true peace, true contentment, because the world as a whole is groaning under the despair of the weight of sin. 8 years ago, girls, I went, I hate to say this, 8 years ago, I went to my 30-year high school reunion. I am 2 years, that just sounds better for some reason than I'm 2 years away from my 40th. Okay, so just play along. So it's been 8 years since my 30th. And so I go to this reunion, and there's some girls that I saw there that I would not have recognized if their little name badge with their little picture wasn't on it. There are girls that were at that reunion that when I was 17, I would have given a body part. Now, not a major body part, but I would have given a body part if they would have said yes to going out with me. So I get to this reunion, and I'm looking at some of these girls, and I'm thinking, my gosh, what's happened to you? Now, I know you're thinking, hey, pal, just look in the mirror. Okay, but this isn't about me. Okay, I get it. I'm okay with that. Girls, because I've lived with 4 women most of my life. Now, I had a male dog, but it was neutered. So there's nothing I had to relate with all the years. All I had was the mailbox, okay? That's all I had. But girls, I want you to listen what I'm going to tell you, because it's worth the price of admission. If this is one of the things you got out of the week, I promise you, you're going to go, oh, it's worth that. So I've spent a lot of stinking money in my lifetime buying makeup. My youngest daughter came home at Christmas, and she said, Daddy, can we go? This is one that's the actress in L.A. And she said, Daddy, can we go to Sephora? Do y'all have Sephoras where you live? I know they don't have a Sephora in Seminole, but other than that, or probably in Kearns, but this place called Sephora, all the women that work there should have masks. They should, and guns. Because my daughter came out with 2 little tiny items in her hand, just like this. And the lady hit the register, and she said, Mr. Samuels, that will be $178. And then she says, but Daddy, it'll last a long time. Girls, when I walked away from my 30-year high school reunion, here's what I want you to hear. Please hear me. And guys, you better listen to this, please. As I'm telling you, there's some girls in your school, they're drop dead gorgeous, but they're godless. And some of you guys are after them and pursuing them. What God told me as I walked away from that reunion is this: godly women age better than godless women. Girls, listen to me. Sin will do something to a woman's face that makeup will not cover. It's true. You look at a woman who's a 25-year-old prostitute, she looks like a 50-year-old woman. Sin sits on a woman's face. You want to stay beautiful as long as you can stay beautiful, then you pursue the God who created you. But there's a second word that he uses here in verse 10. It's the word remove. Look what he says. He said, remove from yourself grief and anger from your heart, and put away pain from your body, because the childhood and the prime of life is fleeting. Anything in your life, listen to me, anything in your life that's more important to you than him has got to be destroyed. Because all it's going to bring, Solomon said it, the wisest man that ever lived, if it's something other than Christ, it's only going to bring you pain and anger and grief. The thing is, some of you right now have got a hold of something, something's got a hold of you, and you don't want to turn it loose. And all it's going to do, girls, it's going to bring you heartache and it's going to bring you pain. And if God's merciful to you, he's going to take it away. But if God doesn't take it away and he lets you keep it, it'll never bring you what you think it will. There's an urgency here about this. Look what he says, because the prime of life is fleeting. The word fleeting here, there are two words in the Old Testament for fleeting. Number one is the blackness of hair, which I don't have anymore. Just a few years ago, my hair was as black as many of yours. I was running 40 and 50 miles every week. I don't run anymore. I get on an elliptical and a stationary bike 5 days a week, but that'll never happen again. Those days are gone. The word also means dawn. It means the breaking of dawn, the most beautiful time of life. The most beautiful time of the day is the beginning of the day, because what happens to you in the morning sets the tone for what happens the rest of your day. But listen to this. This is why Super Summer exists. Because during these days, as God is allowing Super Summer to be an instrument that God is using in your life to let you discover him and develop you, guess what? Many of you are going to be different for the rest of your life. Super Summer understands the urgency of a week like this, and you better understand the urgency of getting this right during these days. Because before you blink, you will no longer have what you have today. Youth goes so quickly. Then there's one final thing that I want you to see, and I'm finished. I'm finished. Look at verse 12. Third word that he gives us, and this is the most important of all the three words. First word was rejoice. Second word, to remove. Third word is to remember. Look what he says. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth. Now, some of you are asking me, Warren, is it possible for me to regain what I lost when I, in the past, have rejoiced in the wrong thing? And the answer is yes. And I don't want you to miss this. Remembering can redeem what you lost when you rejoiced in the wrong thing. Do you guys understand that all of God's festivals, all of God's feasts had one purpose? They didn't have Halloween, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But they did have festivals that lasted for days. But listen to this. This is so awesome. Every single one of those festivals, they only had one purpose. And that was to remind the children of Israel who God was. Now, why would God do that? Why did he have to do that? You want to know why? Are you ready for this? Write it down. Very important. Your forgetter, just write it down. I know it's not great English, but stay with me. Your forgetter is bigger than your rememberer. Your forgetter is bigger than your rememberer. What does that mean? What it means is this, that God knows that your ability and my ability to forget him is bigger than my ability to remember him. Why is God such an egomaniac? He has to devise all these festivals so that people remember him. What a narcissistic God, really? How dare you? How dare you? Because God knows, and he knows that the way in which he created you and the way in which he wired you was in such a way that the only way you'd ever find joy, the only way you'd ever find peace, the only way you'd find contentment was in him. You will never find any of those things outside of Christ. Now, some of you in here will dare me, and you're going to try. Let me tell you this about choices. God lets you make choices, but you don't get to choose the consequences. I'll give you, for instance, we're living today in a sex-crazed society. When I was a high school student, there were only 3 kinds of venereal disease. Today, there are roughly 30. You are an idiot to play around with sex during these days, because it'll give you something that you're going to give someone else, that they're going to give someone else, that many of those things can take your own life. We're living in an unbelievably sex-crazed society, but here's the weird thing. Because I talk to students all the time that tell me this, and so I know I'm not lying. And you know, many of you know this firsthand. Is that teenagers today are going, man, if sex is so awesome, Warren, why is it not giving me what I think it should? Why does it seem to feel so weird? Why does it seem to feel so empty? Why does it not bring me what I think that it should? I went today to the grocery store to pick up a couple of things, and I looked at the magazine rack just to prove if this was true. Tell me if I'm not being honest. Have you looked at the magazines right there before you check out at the grocery store and the articles in some of the magazines? They all have to do with sex techniques. Sex techniques. Because the average teenager today believes that if having sex is not giving them what they think it should, they must be doing it wrong. And so we grab these magazines. I mean, even Boat Trader's got magazines called How to Rev His Engine. I mean, everybody today. Everybody today, everybody is asking, why does it not seem to be working? But you know what we never think? Listen to this. We never think, well, maybe it's not supposed to work because I'm not able to celebrate God in it. Let me tell you something. Now, don't go duh when I tell you this. I understand sex is physical, but let me tell you something. It's intensely spiritual. Do you understand that? Sex is not just physical, it is intensely spiritual. Every time a man and a woman, and listen to me, I don't care what a man says behind a microphone, I don't care what this world says, what our government says is law, that marriage is defined not by man but by God. It is one man, one woman. And I want you to understand this, I am not homophobic and do not hate gay people. I do not want you to misunderstand, and I know there are kids here in the room this size. You're struggling with same-sex attraction. And I want to beg you with all of my heart to understand that it's not natural. I don't care how unpolitically correct it is, that it will lead you down a path that you do not want to go, because I know many, many homosexuals that if they could stand up here would tell you that. And it's perversion, just like sex outside of marriage, just like bestiality, just like all the forms of sexual perversion that human beings can be involved in. And girls, you need to hear this when I tell you this, okay? Girls, you listen? Every girl in this room, listen to this. A boy will use love to get sex, and a girl will use sex to get love. Girls, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys cannot give you what you think you need. I don't care how starved you are because your daddy doesn't love you the way your daddy should love you, and I understand that. Some of you, I'm sorry that your daddy's not there, or I'm sorry that he doesn't love you, but the answer is not some 16, 17-year-old who only wants to get you in bed and then leave you. And then leave you carrying a brand new baby. I know it because my oldest daughter got pregnant outside of wedlock. And I know the horrors of a boy who said, baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. When in reality he said, baby, all I want to do is get you in bed. And the moment they got in bed, kaboom, he's gone and left me with a granddaughter who is so precious to me. She's an unbelievable little girl. Let me tell you something. God's the only one that can take the years that the locusts have eaten and redeem them. So please understand, girls, boys will promise you the moon. They'll lie to your face. They'll lie to your face. They'll tell you what they'll do. The reality is they're interested in one thing. Because young boys at 16, 17, 18 are absolutely full of hormones, and they don't know what to do with them. They don't. So instead of saying, God, why does this technique not seem to be right? Why are we not asking, God, am I able to celebrate you in what I'm about to do? Because if you can't celebrate God in sex or in any other area of your life, then it will never bring you what you think it'll bring you. It's kind of like with these little fish. These are the cutest little fish. I picked them up today. They're called fruit fish. And I can't wait to I don't have any idea why, but anyway, they're just really cute fish, and I can't wait to get them home, and I'll take them home with me on Friday, and they'll become my new pets. But let's just suppose for a moment that well, let me sit down here so I don't have an accident, okay? Well, I'll sit here. Let's suppose that we are all I want to do is talk to it. Let's suppose, they've not had a chance this week to be on that field that we were on to this morning. And I want to take them out there tonight and just show them around this campus. It's a great place. Okay? So, man, they're faster than I thought they were. Okay. Little fish. I am not eating the fish. Just stay with me. Gosh. Little fish. Would you like $1,000? Hang on. I lost him. Little fish, wait a minute. Would you like a Michelob Light? How about the latest copy of Playfish? The answer to each of those is no. You know why? Because this little fish was destined for water. You can offer him anything in the world, but it will never take away the yearning in his little heart to return to the place where he was created by God to be. It is the same way with each one of us. And each of us, by God's grace, by God's glory, we're created to be close to him. Anything that's offered to you outside of that, you will always be longing for something more. Let's pray. Father, you're awesome.